welcome Washoe County Library's Wild Wednesdays with conservation ambassadors and wild things. This is our friend Gabe. Gabe, tell us about who you have there.
Well, this is Dewey Hopper, and Dewey Hopper is an African, it's kind of a long word, but he's called an African pixie frog. So because that's pretty hard to say, we kind of call them the pixie frogs, which then it doesn't mean they're small. They get to be one of the largest frogs on the planet. This guy here, as his name implies, he is from Africa. He lives in the grasslands of Africa, and probably one of the coolest life cycles of all the animals I've worked with, because half of every single year, this frog is buried underneath the ground. When the dry season comes, the drought, he burrows down into the mud kind of closes on top of him. He encases himself, this is kind of cool, he encases himself in this kind of white, slimy mucus. And that mucus gets hard and crispy, kind of like a layer of glue over his whole body. And then he sits down there in the ground, in that mucus, for 6 months. No food, no water, no books to read. I threw that in for the library there. And no books to read. And he waits until the next year's rains. And when he feels moisture, he kind of cuts through that bubble. He climbs up through the mud, and he starts his whole life cycle all over again. Pretty amazing. Now, he is awfully cute, as we were talking about prior. He is an awfully cute little animal, but this is a predator. This is a hunter. Every part of this frog's body is designed so that he can kill and eat things the size of his head. So he's about 2/3 grown. He's now eating very large mice or small rats, and maybe even a small bird out there in the wild. And he sits there and he's camouflaged by that green skin, and he waits and he waits. And when an animal gets too close, he catches his prey. And when he catches his prey, it's inside those jaws. It's tremendous jaw strength. He clamps down. He has 4 very large fangs. And people don't think of frogs as having teeth, but this guy has very sharp fangs. He grabs on his prey, and once the animal's dead, he kind of tilts his head back. This is pretty neat too. I don't know if any of you have ever watched frogs eat, but all frogs and salamanders and toads, when they swallow, they tilt their head back and they close their eyes. And when they close their eyes, it's actually the back of the eyeball that pushes down on the roof of their mouth, and that's how they swallow. Frogs swallow with their eyeballs. I think that's totally cool. Now his colors, he's green on his back, beautifully green, that's camouflage. He's in the water or the water's edge of a pond. Water's a little bit green. You can't see him. You see it blends in a little bit with my shirt. Now, his belly though, his belly is rather different. Has kind of yellow and white, kind of light. Wait a minute. He looks like Jabba the Hutt. The little yellow and the white down here. This is called counter shading. He's light on the belly, so if an animal's in the water looking up towards the sun, he is camouflaged in that direction as well. That should tell you, all the animals we have, I like to tell their stories and why we have them. This guy was actually a confiscation. Somebody was lucky enough to travel to Africa. They tried to sneak this frog back in the United States. They got caught, and Dewey was taken away and sent to our center. He might live to be 10 or 12 years old. They live a pretty long time. Oh, kind of a cool thing too. He might look a little bit like a sumo wrestler. This guy big and strong. Well, there's a time of the year when the bullfrogs, the males, they fight. They fight for territory. They sit there and they wait until another male comes in. They kind of grab each other and fling each other. It's as if they're having these frog wrestling matches. Really a fascinating creature. I think he's beautiful. You want to know what he says in terms of what sound does he make? He makes this noise. He goes, "Er." That's it. It's the only noise I've ever heard him make is "er." It's pretty neat. I like him for that reason too. He's nice and quiet. I think he's beautiful. He's not very fast. Never, ever going to win a frog jumping contest. He weighs about 1.5 pounds. Those strong legs back there are good for kind of pushing through the mud, but they're not made for hopping. He's not going to get off the ground. This area here where I'm touching with my finger, you see how it kind of wiggles a little bit? That's a water bladder. It's almost like a canteen. If he doesn't want to get stuck without water when he's down there on the ground, so he carries a really large supply of water around in his side in case he needs to burrow down and escape the drought, escape the dry season. When they lay eggs, usually they lay about 30,000 eggs at one time. 30,000 eggs. Now, not all those hatch into tadpoles, but many do. And then many of those little tadpoles get eaten by fish and other frogs and whatnot. But several of them do make it adulthood and keeps the species going strong. So that's Dewey Hopper.
Wow, he is adorable. And I agree, I think he is beautiful.
I think so too.
I'm going to do a really quick formal introduction here and welcome everyone. So again, welcome to Washoe County Library's Wild Wednesdays with Conservation Ambassadors Wild Things. This is our friend Gabe, and he just gave a really amazing overview of Dewey, the pixie frog. And if you missed it, we are archiving all of these events, so you can go back and catch up what you missed. And of course, you can find resources through the library website about African pixie frogs. So Gabe, we did have a couple of questions come in about little Mr. Dewey here. Would you like to answer those now before we go on to our main?
Certainly, that'd be great.
Okay, so lots of feedback. So cute, big, love him. And then before you told us what he was, that he is a frog, we weren't sure if he was a toad or a frog. Did you tell us the difference between a toad and a frog?
Not really. Basically, it's a question of whether they live their life more on a dry land or more aquatic, how they're adapted for that, and the structure of their skin. Dewey is a little bit unique in terms of frogs. Most frogs have fully webbed back feet. He is considered a frog, and his back feet aren't fully webbed. So that's one of the deciding factors. In your area over in Reno, you have a great spade-footed toad, which is a very similar kind of body structure, but a little bit different skin, and made to live in a kind of a semi-moist foresty area. So that's the best I can do in terms of the differences between the two.
And where can we learn about the difference between toads and frogs, Mr. Gabe?
There's what is that place called with all the books?
Oh.
Let's go to the library.
Oh, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for the reminder. So the library. And unfortunately, we're just not open to the public yet, which is super tragic, but we do have a lot of resources on our website, which again is washoecountylibrary.us. So we can learn more about frogs and toads. Okay, so again, he's so cute. Toad the pig because of the mud, but again, he is a frog, and we learned about that. He looks brown on camera, but you said he is a kind of a green color.
Oh, he didn't come out across as green?
He looked a little more brown on my end as well, but you know, it depends on our monitors.
He does have some dirt on him. He's been burrowing down in some dirt. So.
Yeah, I have to tell you, I wouldn't mind hibernating, but without books, it'd be kind of boring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Has the frog ever bit anyone? Because you did mention that he has teeth.
Good question. Actually, this pixie frog has not. But one of our keepers here actually did get nipped by a different pixie frog because they were feeding him. They were feeding him a little, it was a mouse, and feeding him a mouse that was not alive, but dangling in front, and they weren't paying attention, and the frog took the skin right off the tip of the finger. It's amazing to think the biting strength of a frog. It's we don't think about it in those terms.
And just a quick review, I think I skipped this question, but you did touch on it. What he does eat large things.
Yeah, he eats large mice, small rats. He'll even eat small birds at this size. Anything that wiggles in front of him is fair game.
Including fingers, if you're not careful.
Including fingers, right.
So unintentional.
I'm going to do the jokes here, Beyonce.
Oh, sorry. I'll
yes,
stop.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for thanks for putting me in my place. Okay, so then tell us the noise he makes again, because that was pretty good.
Just a little
Just a little No croak, no ribbit.
No ribbit, just
And then we've got one more question. We've got a young friend, Miss Bailey. Oh, it could be. So Bailey wants to know, age 8, why frogs eat tadpoles and what else do they eat? So we'll just review that.
Well, that's a good question. You know, frogs eat the tadpoles of other frogs. And they're basically very instinctive feeders. If something is wiggling in front of them, a little bit of movement, they're going to try and eat it. Sometimes it's a bad choice. Sometimes it's not something that they should be eating, or might actually end up being a little bit too large. But they're triggered by movement in front of them, and that's when they capture their prey.
Thanks, Gabe. All right, are
Sure.
we ready to move on to our key attraction today?
Absolutely. This is, well, can I tell a little bit about what we do here? And then I'll go
Oh,
into
yes, please.
okay, I'm Gabe with Conservation Ambassadors, Wild Things. And all the animals we have here at our center are animals that have been injured and can't go back out in the wild, or they are animals that people have tried to keep illegally, trying to make into pets. And we all understand and know that wild animals belong in the wild. They don't belong in people's homes or as pets. The animals that we can here at our center, we use in our school programs, traveling to schools and clubs and camps. And some of my favorite programs are the library programs, giving us a chance to share amazing wild animals. This year, because of the virus, we're doing these virtual programs, a lot of fun. And today's program is particularly fun for me because it involves a couple of creatures that I just adore. I think they're fascinating. I am quite honored to work with them. I think it's almost like working with a living, breathing dinosaur. Should I start, Beate?
Absolutely.
All
You're
right.
in charge, Gabe.
All right. This first one, his name is Lewis. And Lewis is, well, he's not very big, but he one day will be. One day he'll be more than I can carry around. And he's an animal that, well, there's a lot of misconceptions about it. I think we can learn a lot about them. Lives right here in North America. This is the largest reptile we have here in our country. Give me a second. I'll be right back with Lewis. Okay, Lewis. Hi, buddy. This is not Lewis. This is not Lewis. I messed up which box I got him out of. This is not Lewis, Beate. This is Steve. This is Steve. And Steve, you know what he is? This is an American crocodile. This is an American crocodile. A fascinating creature. You know, a lot of people don't know that here in the United States, we have alligators and crocodiles. We have both alligators and crocodiles. And people always want to know the difference. And I'll show the difference in just a minute between these two. Now, this guy here, he floats along in a swamp, southern part of the United States, all the way down into the Caribbean. He floats along a swamp with just his nose sticking on the surface of the water. And he sticks his nose out, and when the animal gets too close, he makes a meal out of it. This guy is an amazing, amazing predator. Probably the most aggressive animal that I've ever worked with. He looks awfully cute right now, and he's about, 2.5 feet long. But this little creature will chase me out of the reptile building. I go in to get him out, and he'll come flying out and say, "Hey, this is a crocodile. He just doesn't want to be messed with." Now, the American crocodile, important story to talk about. These guys, people fell in love with them back in the 1950s and 60s. They fell in love with the crocodiles and the alligators. And they didn't fall in love with them as beautiful wild creatures. You know what they fell in love with? This skin, this belly skin and the side skin. People thought it was so cool. People made boots and belts and wallets and suitcases out of it. And so many crocodiles and so many alligators were killed for their skin that the American alligator became an endangered species. And the American crocodile, this guy right here, extinct, gone forever. Or so we thought. We thought they were gone. And then about 30 years ago, at a power plant in southern Florida, you know what they found? A small population of crocodiles that was still alive. A creature that we thought was gone forever. These guys, they found a small population and they put some of the eggs in breeding programs and protected them and started releasing them. And you know what? Now there are 3,000 American crocodiles back in the United States. I think that's so totally cool. A creature we thought was gone forever, back from the brink of extinction. It shows me, it makes me feel really good because it shows me if we care about a creature, care enough to try and protect it, we can bring them back from the brink. Very, very important. Now the crocodile, I said he's aggressive. As aggressive as he is, mama crocodiles are some of the best moms in the animal kingdom. A mama crocodile, she'll dig a nest. She digs a nest, a little hole, and she doesn't do it right by the water's edge. She does it up high, maybe about 6 feet above the water line, and she'll dig a hole, and she'll lay her eggs. And then she'll carefully pick up certain grasses and leaves and cover those eggs with grasses and leaves. And then mama crocodile, she stands guard. She stands guard. She won't leave the nest. She stands guard there, living off the fat of her tail. She stands guard there. Maybe she might go down and get a drink of water, but that's about it. And she's guarding the eggs from maybe raccoons or otters or skunks. You know, raccoons and otters and skunks, when mama's there, they don't mess with that nest. Nobody messes with mama crocodile. The babies hatch. The little crocodiles hatch out of the egg. And they have a special little sharp spot on the top of their nose. It's called an egg tooth. And then when they're little, and they have that little egg tooth, and they kind of cut through this leathery egg. And then they kind of poke their head out. And here's where it gets really cool. They start making this little peeping sound. It sounds like, mm, 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 mm. You guys should try that at home. Mm. And mom, she hears that. Mom hears that sound. She comes over. She opens up the nest. She reaches in with her huge jaws and teeth that are sometimes this long, and she picks up her hatchlings, her babies, in her mouth and carries them down to the water's edge. What a cool way to start life. All of a sudden, you struggle out of an eggshell, and there's these jaws and teeth coming at you. I'd say I'd have my mom, I'd have a little t-shirt for my mom that said, "Mom, I love you. You know, take it easy. Go slow." Anyways, she carries them down to the water's edge. They go swimming, and they're off eating little bugs, maybe some crickets that get onto the water surface, or maybe some of those tadpoles we talked about. There's maybe 15 to 30 eggs in a nest. Some of them make it, some of them don't. But if they make it to, a little bit bigger than this, they're probably good to go. At that point, other animals basically leave them alone. Isn't he beautiful?
He's
now,
beautiful.
Steve here is not an animal that somebody tried to keep illegally. Steve is actually part of the breeding program. At the breeding project, they have a lot of males that they don't really need. They just want them to be well cared for. And so he's on loan to us at our center to use our education programs and talking about this really unique project, getting him back out there in the wild. Isn't it cool? You guys see, okay, let's talk about alligators and crocodiles. He has a notch on his nose. Do you see how it's kind of a little notch? Can you see that? Right there, right behind his little, he has that little notch, and that notch is for his largest tooth on the bottom jaw to stick up and in. He has that big tooth on the bottom jaw, a sharp, pointy tooth that sticks up there into that notch. That denotes that he is a crocodile. You see, in the world, there are 27 different crocodilians, 27 different kinds of alligators and crocodiles and caiman, 27 different kinds. Of those, only 2 of them are alligators. The rest of them are all crocodiles. The 2 alligators are the North American alligator and the Chinese alligator, both having big tooth that points down. I think he's beautiful. Now, he's got those vertical slit pupils, very cat-like in his eyes. Those pupils dilate all the way open so he can see at night. He's actually really primarily a nocturnal predator. He uses the cover of darkness to capture his prey. Isn't he cool?
He is awesome. Gabe, we have a very intuitive observer here. One of the comments from our attendees says, Steve's eyes are like cat eyes when cats are mad.
Exactly right. Very cool. Only he's nicer than cats. I'm just kidding. That's this guy here. He does have, and if, I don't know if you can see behind his eye, there's a little opening. That's his ear. And we'll talk about that more with our next guest. We'll talk about how they're designed to be in the water. Now, how do you guys say goodbye to a crocodile? Say in a while.
Of course.
Yeah, there we go. And then,
in a while. But
crocodile.
Before you put
Very
Steve
good.
away, Gabe,
Right.
can we ask a couple of questions on Steve?
Sure.
So inquiring minds want to know, why is his mouth always open?
He's telling me that he's going to bite me. That's that with a lot of the animals we have, like Steve there, it's just his nature. He's an aggressive creature. We handle him with lots of love and lots of respect, but I know what he is. He is a very primitive, aggressive reptile that survives in the wild by being aggressive, by protecting himself. So he would let me have it if he had an opportunity to. So that's what he was telling me. He was saying, hey, I'm going to bite you if you get your hand any closer.
Which really emphasizes what your message is. We don't
Right,
want
yeah.
wild animals as pets.
Right. And with him, I mean, people always say, is he mean? I don't think animals are ever mean. I think people are mean. I think animals are just protective or defensive, or they get frightened. They want to, be able to survive. And this guy has been on that planet. That guy has been on this planet for a long, long time. The crocodilians were here at the time of the dinosaur. They made it that long by being aggressive, by protecting themselves.
And you mentioned that he will grow how big?
About 12 to 15 feet. And when he's 12 feet and comes flying up out of his enclosure, I'm going to pay very close attention.
But you said he's on loan. So
he's on loan. Yes, he might go back.
Okay.
We'll see. If they need him, he has to go back. So
really cool that you get to borrow him for your educational purposes.
That's right.
Lucky
and
for us.
He likes California, so.
Where is the other center that he came from?
In Florida.
Oh,
it's actually, it's near Jacksonville.
You might have said that. I might have not been paying attention. I think I just got caught. All right, are we ready for our next one?
You ready to meet Lewis?
We are ready for Lewis.
Lewis is so cool. Lewis is actually my favorite species to talk about. I think they're fascinating. I'll be right back. This is Lewis, close cousin of Steve. Hi, Lewis. Whoa.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Are you okay, Gabe?
I don't know.
Gabe, we're a little worried about you.
I think I got him. Hold on. Oh,
uh-oh. Oh.
Isn't he cute? What is this? This is an alligator. Look at him. Listen to him. Whoa, he's making a cool sound. Listen to that noise. Now, this is an alligator. This is the North American alligator. Look at his nose. You see how it's rounded? He has that rounded tip to his nose. That's, you can tell he's an alligator. Also, his biggest tooth will point down, right? The crocodile has that big tooth that points up. The alligator, the big tooth that points down. Pretty cool. Now, let me tell you Lewis's story. Lewis's story is something that's happening a lot right now. People trying to make pets out of alligators and crocodiles. This guy actually came to us from Northern California. He came to us from Chico, California. And he was found as an illegal pet, taken away in Centaur Center. I love him. I love sharing with you. But once again, wish he was living his life in the wild. I think he's beautiful. He just got a buddy. Another alligator about his same size came in, and they kind of pushed each other around a little bit, but giving themselves a little bit of interaction, I think that makes their lives a little bit better. Now, look at him. He's a little bit more heavy-bodied than the crocodile, isn't he? A little bit stockier. One day he's going to be 15 feet long. The record alligator in the United States was about 18 feet long. That's huge. That's an enormous, enormous animal. Now, the alligator floats along a swamp with just his nose, his eyes, his ears, and some of these bumps sticking out of the surface. And when he floats on really still, really quiet, what does he look like? Looks like a log, like a branch floating in the water. Fish and frogs, they swim right up in front of his mouth. Do you know why a fish would swim up in front of his mouth? I look at it carefully. Look at it carefully. Look at it like a scientist. You see how it's kind of light colored on the sides of his jaw? And there's some little black dots, little polka dots. In the water, those black polka dots look like fish eggs. And fish love, love, love to eat the eggs of other fish. They'll come over, they'll start nibbling right on the sides of his jaw. And that's how he catches his prey. Something touches the sides of his jaw, that's how he catches his food. Pretty cool. On land, he'll sometimes capture food. If something gets a little bit too close, but he's mostly an aquatic predator. Some say that they catch some food by kind of curling their tail around and bringing their head around and kind of horseshoeing their body, and they capture prey, although I've never, ever seen this done. For the most part, this guy is frog and fish hunter in the wild in our southern swamps. Alligators were almost hunted to extinction just like the crocodile. So many of them were taken for their skin in places like Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, and the Carolinas, that this guy became an endangered species. We've protected them, and now there are over 6 million alligators in Florida alone. These guys are thriving in North America. They're doing very, very well. And we're seeing alligators as far north as North Carolina, which is really weird in the wintertime because in North Carolina, it sometimes freezes. The ponds sometimes freeze. And about 2 years ago, we had a cold snap, and it was a cool picture. It showed alligators sticking their noses up through the ice in the pond. We're just their nearest. These two little holes are sticking through, and they were able to breathe and survive through that cold snap. Pretty neat. He can hold his breath. You guys hold your breath for more than a day. Holding his breath. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. He can eat one dinner, and he can live for an entire year off of that one meal. Amazing, amazing survivor. Look at his belly skin. You are such a squiggler today.
Oh, his tail is beautiful.
It is beautiful, isn't it? But that belly skin, that's the skin that everybody wanted for the boots and the belts and the wallets and suitcases. Like I said, luckily now, we tend to look at those patterns and make fake leathers with those patterns rather than taking the wild creatures. And all the wild animals in the world are doing better because of it. Skin has kind of lost its appeal or hides. You should particularly know. Did you guys hear the sound he made? That's much like the crocodile. It's a baby alligator sound. Mama alligators are pretty good moms as well. Not quite as aggressive as the crocodiles, but close. Here's an interesting thing. Might be a little bit complicated, but follow me on this. When an alligator lays her eggs and she covers the eggs up with grasses and leaves, those eggs are neither male nor female, meaning we don't know yet. It depends on how warm the nest is. If the nest is really, really warm, they all turn out to be boys. If the nest is really, really cold, they all turn out to be girls. It's the temperature of the nest that determines the offspring. I think it's fascinating. I think they should teach classes and stuff about that kind of stuff.
That is fascinating. Gabe, is that only with alligators?
I know there are other animals that are temperature sensitive as well.
But not crocodiles.
Crocodiles are temperature sensitive as well. I just neglected to talk about it at that point.
That is cool. That's a fun fact.
That is great. Yeah, it's pretty neat. Now, some scientists have kind of surmised that maybe dinosaur eggs were the same way. And follow me on this. This is kind of interesting. If dinosaur eggs are the same way and the Earth's general temperatures were cooling, they might have had too many eggs hatched of one gender and not the other, maybe contributing to the die-off or the extinction of the dinosaur. I think it's pretty fascinating.
That is really fascinating.
At our center right now, we have 14 alligators.
Oh.
14 alligators. All of them that people try to keep as illegal pets. Once again, I should get a bumper sticker made. I have to say it so often, but I wish people would just leave the wild animals alone in the wild where they belong. And speaking of being in the wild, when this guy's in the wild, he does a lot of digging. They call them alligator holes because these guys, they dig down into the mud, into the dirt, and they go back there year after year and to the same spot and kind of push all the mud and the reeds out of the way. And they make these big holes. Super important because then when there's a drought, those are the only holes that have water in them. And that's where the deer and the raccoon and the otters come to get their water. Without the alligator, our swamps don't work properly. Very, very important part. Something I like to talk about too is everybody thinks about alligators and crocodiles as being dangerous to man. Sure, in Africa or in Australia, you wouldn't want to go swimming where there are large crocodiles. But here in North America, where there are alligators, for the most part, they're shy and they just want to leave us alone. We don't want to be respectful and give them their space, but it's not something we need to be fearful of. I think we can get along with them just fine. Pretty cute. All right, you want to say goodbye to Lewis?
Yes, we have a couple of questions. Do you want to put Lewis down
Sure,
before we ask?
No,
Okay.
He's nice and comfortable now, so that's good.
So you were mentioning that that you've rescued 14 of them. And one of our questions here is, has Lewis done the death roll? Because I have seen alligators do them on videos before. Might that be why we're rescuing so many, Gabe?
It's not why we're rescuing so many of them. But Lewis does roll. It is their defense, how they get away from things. And sometimes if they need to tear up their food to make it a little bit smaller. They spin, they roll their body. But no, that's not why we got him. But yeah, the death roll, what they do is they grab on and clamp down with those powerful jaws. Some biologists say about 3,000 pounds per square inch of crushing power. They grab on with those jaws, they spin their bodies, and that either tears food up so they can swallow big chunks, or if there's an animal bothering them, it helps them to get away. I have to itch my nose.
I'm guessing there's a lot of videos out there about alligators right now, which is spurring the interest, maybe?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, well, I think that, Steve, the crocodile had out, he's named for Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. He's named for that show, right? And I think he did a lot of great things in terms of people getting excited about alligators and crocodiles. But I think some people take that the wrong way, and they start going out there and trying to collect them and keep them in aquariums and things like that.
And then they get big.
They do get big. I'm going to see if I can close his eye, Beate.
Okay.
I want you to watch his eye. I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to close his eye. And when it opens, watch for a lens and move sideways. Watch this. Did you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Let me do it again. He has a built-in pair of swimming goggles. The water, hello, open up. Boop, boop, there we go. It's a pair of goggles that goes sideways. He has a lens. It's called a nictitating membrane. Basically, a built-in pair of swimming goggles. The water where he lives, not crystal blue pool water. This is dirty, silt-filled water. So when he's underwater, he closes his eye, and he closes that goggle. You can see underwater as well as above the surface of the water. His eyes also, I don't know if you noticed when I touched them, see how they disappear? They suck down into the skull. That's so if he's fighting with another alligator, he doesn't lose his sense of vision. Can you hear that? You know what he's saying? Saying, let me open my eyes up. Yes. They're beautiful, beautiful animals. The world's crocodilians, the family, they all need our help. Our North American alligator is doing well, but other crocodiles around the world and caiman are having a hard time. They are prehistoric. They can be a little scary, but I think if we read about them, we learn about them, we lose a lot of that fear. I think with any animals, a lot of our fear is based on not understanding and not knowing them. That's little Lewis. Say, see you later, alligator.
After a while, crocodile.
All right. I did that in the school once. This little kid came up at the end of the show and said, see you soon, you big baboon. And then I never see him again. All right, let me put him back. Were there any other questions?
Why does his tail look flat?
Flat. That's his rudder. That's when he pushes it with his powerful tail muscles from side to side, and it pushes him along. He can swim faster than any of us could ever dream of swimming. This guy's an amazing swimmer. That's his big muscle. The base of the tail, that's his biggest, strongest muscle. And when he does it from side to side with that flat rudder-like tail, it just ushers him along. His feet are good too, a little bit for moving along the bottom of a pond or swamp, but they're not webbed for swimming like a frog's.
Okay, and then we've got a follower here that saw you at Verdi last year.
Very cool.
So first I want to emphasize they love alligators. And do you still have the large alligator that your organization brought to Verdi last year?
Yes, but he was unable to make it today. You know what? If you tune in for the show where we have the python on, another one of our Wild Wednesdays with the python, we'll have the big alligator, kind of the promo animal.
There you go, a little tickler. And it's not next week. So next week's going to be a surprise too. So we've got huge thank yous. We have Alligator is crazy cool. We've got Hiss. And then lots of so cool comments. So I think you really have a big fan base here, Gabe and Lewis.
Very cool.
And we can't forget Steve, Lewis, and then Dewey. See,
That's
I'm
right.
paying attention, Gabe.
Perfect.
All right, do we have any other, oh, wait, we got another question just came in. Why do the crocodile and alligator keep trying to bite you? Wouldn't they eventually
Well, the alligator
get
was,
used to you?
yeah, the alligator was just trying to wiggle. But the crocodile always, always, always tries to bite. It's just how he is. I can't get into his head. It's just every crocodile I've ever worked with, that's what they do. So
It's how he protects himself.
you gotta love him.
Yeah. So I've learned something, you know, we in society often say mama bear when we're talking about beware of a cranky mom. I think I need a t-shirt that says beware the mama crocodile.
That's cool. That's awesome. Let's do it.
We'll do it as a fundraiser for conservation ambassadors.
That'd be great.
Okay, so again, give us a quick review or just a little bit more about conservation ambassadors. It is in our on our website. You can learn more about conservation ambassadors, but just a quick reminder, Gabe, please.
Great, sure. We are a wildlife rescue center and education program. We have 2 sites here in Weimar, and the other site in Paso Robles. And you know what? We have wonderful animals that I get to work with, but I think my favorite part of my job is doing programs, being able to travel out to the school groups and the libraries, and hopefully next year we'll be able to get back into in-person and doing what we really do, sharing these wonderful creatures.
Thank you. So before I forget, I have to emphasize a huge shout out to our friends of Washoe County Library, because that is how we can bring these types of events to our community. So thank you, Friends of Washoe County Library, and you can learn more about that organization on their website, which of course eludes me currently, but if you look up Friends of Washoe County Library online, it'll pop right up. I apologize, I don't have that. It's a little different than what I think it yeah. And then one other question, we have someone really wondering what's in the case behind you.
Oh, interesting question. These are other reptiles. You can't meet them yet because we're going to use them in another program. But we're here with reptiles. This is a Gila monster. His name is Smog. And over here is a Colorado bull snake named John Elway, because I'm a Denver Bronco fan, and he's from Colorado. And then in this case is a beautiful Taiwanese beauty snake. And it's called a beauty snake because it's just stunningly gorgeous. And you'll meet them on our Wild Wednesdays coming up, some of our other programs.
So you got to keep following. Next week, you got to come join us and see what we've got featured. And
Can I give a hint?
What?
Can I give a hint?
Yes, please do.
It's going to be before the 4th of July.
All right. You guys start thinking about that. Ties in nicely with the 4th of July, maybe?
Maybe.
I'll have to think about that. We have one more question coming in. We would like to meet a bat. Does that tie into anything you've got planned?
No, we don't have any bats here at present. We had some Egyptian fruit bats, but we don't have them now. They went to another zoo. But I will introduce you to an animal that's very bat-like. How's that?
Oh, that sounds good. And then don't forget, where can you learn more about bats?
At the library.
Oh, thank you, Gabe. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so again, if you missed any of our events, go to washoecountylibrary.us/, visit Gabe at Conservation Ambassadors. You learn about some of the other animals that he has on site. Summer learning equals school readiness, which we all know about that, right? This is why we're here today, because we like to learn about new things. So stay engaged all summer by signing up for Washoe County Library's Summer Reading Adventure to track minutes read, activities accomplished, and earn some prizes. And what's coming up? Gabe gave a good hint about next Wild Wednesday, which will be next Wednesday, 2 o'clock. Again, thank you to the friends. Huge shout out to Gabe and Conservation Ambassadors. And thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Take care.
Thanks, Gabe.